Welcome to Get Rich Education. I'm your host, Keith Weinhold. How wealthy people think. That's our topic today. You've got to think differently. Getting rich begins with your belief system, not money. Either you can be a conformer or you can build wealth. What's the number one reason people don't become wealthy? It's how wealthy people think. Today on Get Rich Education. Finally, with Total Control Financial, get checkbook control of your existing 401k and IRA funds to invest in real estate. Yes, you can move your retirement money into your own checking account, but you must avoid the little-known tax that you'll get hammered with in a self-directed IRA. Instead, start your QRP. Learn more and get your free copy of the QRP book by text messaging QRP in all capital letters to 72,000. The company that's provided our listeners with more loans than anyone is Ridge Lending Group, NMLS 42056. You can finance more than 10 single families up to fourplexes. Serving most U.S. states, their knowledge and experience leads to your financial freedom. They're number one in the investment space. Pre-qualify and then chat with President Chaley Ridge personally. Start on your next investment property loan right now at ridgelendinggroup.com.
You're listening to the show that has created more financial freedom than nearly any show in the world. This is Get Rich Education.
Welcome to GRE, from Fairfield, California to Fairbanks, Alaska, and across 188 nations worldwide. I'm Keith Weinhold. This is Get Rich Education, and I really appreciate that you're here. But as always, you're not here for me, you're here for you. Until 150 years ago, almost everyone on the planet was an entrepreneur. They were mostly farmers and tradespeople, and some of the wealthier ones effectively invested in real estate. So entrepreneurship then is nothing new. Self-employment or early wealth earning is nothing that was just invented here recently, and it is attainable for you. Today I want to share with you how rich people think, and I think that you should really only hear about something like this from people that have had some measure of success themselves, the type of success that you want yourself. Did you ever take financial advice from poor people or middle-class people with 401ks? Well, take it from wealthy people. Being a multi-millionaire myself at a fairly young age and having had the opportunity to interview so many financially successful people here over the last 5+ years, which is something that I'm grateful for, well, then let me ask you something. What do you think is the most important resource that you have in this one life that you've been given? It's time. It's time, right? If you think that it's anything other than time, well, then time has got to be right up there. Your very life is made up of chapters of time. Look, we were all born in different families and in a little bit different cultural conditions, but time can supersede all of that. So recognize that time is the most important resource, and then face up to the fact that you've been given just as much time on this earth as Jeff Bezos or Bill Gates, the wealthiest people around. Time is the most important resource, and you've been given 168 hours in a week, just like they have been. So we've all been allocated the same amount of our most precious resource. We've all got the same amount. Well, then there must be something other than time that separates the middle class from the wealthy. Well, to go from middle class to wealthy, do you think that you'd have to begin by thinking differently? Well, yeah, you do. I think most anyone would agree with that. It takes action, but it begins with belief and thought. You've got to agree that you must think differently. But look, and don't let this happen to you today. As soon as you actually tell people what those different thoughts are, then they begin to get closed up really fast once they hear it. So don't get closed off because of cultural conditioning. People get closed off because of the scarcity environment that they grew up in. Don't let that happen to you. You're going to hear some things today that you've never heard before. So before we go forward with how wealthy people think, first, let's get foundational. Let me peel back a layer of your mental onion here. Whether you like it or not, money is a major factor in your life that controls what you can do and what you cannot do. You've got to be honest enough with yourself to say that money matters. You know, one way that you can tell in society that money does matter, it's how people talk about it or don't talk about it, because no one wants to talk about how much money each other makes. Even family members and coworkers often don't know how much each other make. And it's not because it's a small deal. It's because it's too big of a deal. Some people don't want to feel belittled by discovering that they make less than someone else. How many times do you hear people out there say something like, well, life isn't all about money, or, hey, there's some things that are more important than money, or, look, money isn't everything. Well, if people need to make all these little phrases and quips and quotes and reminders, well, then it must actually be something pretty important. Maybe this is just one of those lies that people tell themselves to make them feel better when they're down on their luck or when they're down on their money. To those that say money doesn't matter, I think it's helpful to really see this as a lie at worst and a figure of speech at best. Don't take a figure of speech literally. What are some other dangerous figures of speech? Age is just a number. Well, that's not true. That's just a figure of speech. If age is just a number, why don't 14-year-olds play Major League Baseball? Why don't 75-year-olds play wide receiver in the NFL? Here's another figure of speech. Don't care about what other people think. Are you kidding me? Don't care about what other people think? You do, and you should. Otherwise, you don't care about your reputation. Here's another one. Never give up. I don't think anyone really means that literally. Some things are worth giving up. Who's still out there trying to improve the telegraph or the fax machine anyway? So what this really means is don't give up if it's worth it. So money matters. But let's put this in perspective. Money is a tool, but a powerful one. It matters, but it can't buy you absolutely anything. Maybe it can't buy you love, but money can buy you freedom, influence, and options in your life. So my point is, you need to be honest with yourself and admit that it matters. Society really knows this. When someone describes themselves as a self-made decamillionaire or a self-made success story, we all know what that means. It's about making more of yourself. No one says, I'm a self-made homeless gambling degenerate that lives under a bridge and drinks Mad Dog 2020, but they're self-made too. Just like me, you grew up with limiting beliefs about money. Look, just finish the sentence. I know you're going to be able to finish these sentences for me, okay? Give me the last word in the sentence on each one of these that you definitely learned from your parents. Money doesn't grow on blank. Of course, that's money doesn't grow on trees. Money is the root of all blank. That misleading saying is money is the root of all evil. It takes money to make blank. Obviously, that's it takes money to make money. You finished the sentence before I did because we were all taught this stuff. Most anything that you learned about money was limiting. See, that's why it seems hard to acquire wealth. Isn't it ironic that those who love you the most in life, your parents, are the same ones that placed a limiting belief system inside your spirit and inside your will? Well, it's only because they never learned either. Therefore, really, the greatest impediment to your wealth-building aspiration is perhaps your own family and friends. Well, later in life, when you get a formal education, teachers and professors sure don't teach you abundant money concepts. They teach something closer to the opposite, how to get and keep a secure job. So We're not talking about how to get and keep a secure job here. We're talking about how to build wealth so that you create impact in the world and freedom for yourself. If you think your uncle was a financial success because he retired at age 68 and that was 10 years ago and he's still not working at 78, well, I don't know if that's a success or not. Could he have had a greater impact on others? And how many sacrifices did he make for the 45 years that he worked between age 23 and 68? Don't get so caught up trying to make a living that you forget to live a life. That's not a life well lived. You know, if you haven't heard this before, it's going to be hard for you to believe it. The number one reason that people don't acquire wealth is that it doesn't occur to them that they can. It's that simple. That's from author and motivator Brian Tracy. And in fact, I mentioned that back in episode 1 of this show. Most people don't make an impact substantial enough that it lasts more than 1 or 2 or 3 generations. In fact, I've got a question for you when it comes to making an impact and making a difference. And I'm sorry, this can be a bit sobering. Can you name all 8 of your great-grandparents? I'm not even asking you to tell me anything about them, but can you just at least give me the names of all 8 of your great-grandparents? Just the name. And you begin to realize that living below your means is a tragedy, and that the scarcity mentality is abundant and the abundance mentality is scarce. See how rare making an impact is? So then let me ask you again, would you want your kids to live below their means or expand their means? Of course, expand, just like you really want to expand your means as well. You feel a little guilty now, don't you? People will be looking up their great-grandparents and signing up for Ancestry.com memberships after this. Well, by the time that most people are age 30, they've usually worked and traded their time for dollars for an employer for quite a few years. I sure had. And if you're interested in financial betterment, which you are because you're listening to this, I think that by age 30, you should know how to have income without having to trade your time for it. You have come too far to give up who you are. Your future ought to be up to you and not your employer. Employees are they're the ones that want to retire. It's people that have their own real estate portfolios that produce residual income, or people that own their own businesses. They're the ones that don't want to retire. And what about that job? You know, if you do like your job, truly, in your heart of hearts, love it, and you're not playing some charade, I think that's great. Society needs job workers. But for most people, do you know what a job is? A job is where you pretend to work and your employer pretends to pay you. That's kind of what it is. But don't worry, luckily you've got the commute to relax, right? Yeah, everything's going to be just fine. As a job worker, you're often motivated by fear. You're scared of losing your job, so you better return to work Monday morning. Oh, geez, your primary motivator for where you spend the majority of your waking hours is fear? Is that really the life you chose to design for yourself, if that's a situation that you find yourself in? Or did you just default into it? Instead, a great life is an intentional one. One motivator for quitting my job as a state construction inspector was because I was replaceable. Chances are you are replaceable. If you drop dead today, your job will be reposted within a week. You're replaceable. No one changes the world with words like career track or words like job security. Come on, how much did your employer pay you to give up your dreams? Middle-class people sell their time for dollars, and see, that's what perpetuates this belief that making money is a linear process. The average person thinks that the only way to earn more money is to work more hours. Wealthy people know that big chunks of money require thinking in nonlinear terms. They know that big ideas solve big problems. And since there's no limit to ideas, well, then there's no limit to the amount of money that wealthy people can earn. So wealthy people have this elevated level of awareness. The masses devote a wide swath of their mental bandwidth worrying about money because they just associate money with worry. But those that use the idea philosophy to extrapolate out more impact in the world, they're the ones that are getting ahead. And that's why optimists so often end up with the wealth.
We could make trillions.
Why make trillions when we could make billions?
Why make trillions when you could make billions? And then why make millions when you could make thousands? That's from Austin Powers again. So getting back to how rich people think, the middle class think that hard work is the key to financial freedom, but the wealthy know that it's leverage that creates wealth. If hard work was some big secret, then every cocktail waitress and every concrete worker would be rich. Wealthy people don't just leverage other people's money, but they leverage their connections, their good reputation, and their own resources to optimize the results in every action that they take. Now, wealthy people might still work hard at times in a sense, but what they're really doing is they're outthinking others. They have this heightened level of awareness that it really just becomes a game of soon having that ability to see so many missed opportunities that they're just trying to take down the biggest opportunity so that it isn't missed. They've got that vision. Success and impact, they're really the badges of honor more than hard work is. The middle class, they're exhausted from hard work at the end of the day, while the wealthy are stimulated at the end of the day, thinking about new solutions and breakthroughs that basically keep the middle class employed. Because of this, most people live paycheck to paycheck, while the wealthy, they are living without limits. Most people are playing the roulette wheel, while the wealthy people own the roulette wheel. The middle class just keeps sitting on the sidelines, kind of going through life forever unaware that it all starts with them thinking differently. The wealthy know that it's about building a world-class team. How many times on this show have we discussed the importance of a team? Chances are many of the guests that we've had on the show are now part of your team. Well, just in the same way the greatest fortunes in the world, Carnegie, Rockefeller, Getty, the way that they're all built through mental and physical contributions of a world-class team, just the same. We're talking about how wealthy people think today. So much more on this ahead. I'm Keith Weinhold. You're listening to Get Rich Education.
Are you on track to achieve your financial goals? Income-producing real estate is the most historically proven way to accumulate wealth and has created more financial freedom than any other means. Norada Real Estate provides everything you need to invest in the best turnkey cash flow rental properties. Our simple, proven system will help you create real wealth and passive monthly income. Get your free strategy session with our knowledgeable investment counselors at noradarealestate.com. That's NORADA realestate.com.
Countless property investors get killed with maintenance costs, but that's far less likely when you buy brand new construction. Let me tell you about JWB Real Estate Capital in Jacksonville, Florida. They pioneered the build-to-rent model where you can invest in new construction turnkey rental properties. That's why JWB was featured on the front page of the Wall Street Journal. To learn more and see inventory, go to newconstructionturnkey.com.
This is Get Rich Education's business developer, John Collins, and you're listening to Get Rich Education with my friend, Keith Weinhold. Don't quit your daydream.
Hey, you're back inside Get Rich Education. I'm your host, Keith Weinhold. Before we continue with how wealthy people think today, I might have a chance to meet you in the near future. Let us know at getricheducation.com/contact. And we might arrange a meetup, probably of the less formal variety in this case. February 16th, I'll be in Singapore. February 25th, meet me in Mumbai, India. About a week later, on March 2nd, catch me in Dubai, United Arab Emirates. Go ahead and get a hold of us at the contact page again at getricheducation.com/contact. Largely for Get Rich Education's Asian and Middle Eastern listeners in this case. That'll help us gauge interest and availability. Again, February 16th, I'll be in Singapore. February 25th in Mumbai, India. And just a week later, on March 2nd, meet me in Dubai. We're talking about how rich people think today. If you aren't wealthy and you think you want to be, it starts with thinking differently. Most people believe that money is about status, these ostentatious displays of physical wealth, but wealthy people believe that money is instead about freedom. You can't be truly free without wealth. The middle class is controlled by government and employers, and they restrict what you can do. It's really difficult to make a moral stand for freedom when you're dependent on an employer for making your next mortgage payment. Wealthy people can just buy their way out of toxic work environments, and when they get sick, they can hire the best doctors. I mean, isn't that stuff really important? And now, if this seems frustrating to you, I'd encourage you to not direct your mental energy toward anger, but instead direct it toward acquiring wealth. Middle-class people fret about the future of the economy. Wealthy people are assured because they know that they've created their own economy, and the external broader economy, it might affect them, but they're buffered because wealthy people's networks and the number of and the diversification of their income streams are such that they are recession resilient. All the time on this show, we talk about the importance of buying real estate in multiple recession resilient markets. Well, we're taking a page from the wealthy playbook. Middle class people embrace formal education through advanced degrees. Wealthy people consume any kind of education that makes them wealthier. You know, one of the most inefficient strategies for increasing your income is going back to school to get your MBA or your PhD. Well, your employer knows that. They might even pay your way to help you do that so that you'll stick with fulfilling their dreams instead of yours. Well, rather than doing that, think about continuing education through the lens of what's the biggest problem that you can solve for people. That right there, that is what makes you wealthy. Look at the courses that you can get from an online resource like the Khan Academy for free. Look at the nano degrees that you can get. Focus on creating value for a massive number of people, whether that's providing housing or clean drinking water or a quantum computing breakthrough. The best education then, it's not an MBA, it's following the course of someone that's already become successful in doing what you want to do. Now, it's even possible that you take just a few college credits that might align with creating value for others and what you really want to do. But being focused on a specific formal degree, like a master's or a doctorate, that's just not the way to wealth. If you pay attention in school and you get good grades and you even go to a highly respected college or university like MIT or Yale or Stanford, well, even then, very few people that follow that formula actually get rich. Now, you will probably survive, and you might even become the most successful person in your family. But instead, rich people figure out that training your mind to find solutions to difficult problems that a lot of people have, that is the real secret to making money. And the good news here is that this is possible for anyone that lets their mind be malleable enough to think this way and look through this lens and then takes that action needed to make this possible. Middle-class people see money as a scarce resource, in fact, a limited resource, and therefore, what they feel like they need to do is crowd out competitors and that they need to struggle and fight to get their share or otherwise they're going to lose it to somebody else. Well, that's societal and cultural conditioning creeping in again, and that couldn't be farther from the truth. In fact, that mindset, it almost guarantees that they'll never accumulate more than a middling net worth, or more importantly, only a modest stream of residual income, if any. Rich people know that instead, money flows from ideas, and ideas are limitless. Perhaps you've heard it said before that most people think that they have a money problem, don't really have a money problem. What they have is an idea problem, and lack of money is just a resulting symptom of that underlying idea problem. If you ask most people about money, you're really going to understand why they don't have any. They see financially motivated people as greedy or as being all about themselves. So therefore, what they do is they distance themselves from having money. To the middle class, building wealth seems shallow and it seems like a lot of work. And I really think that's because the middle class don't understand leverage. Being rich really means that people can live a rich life and an existence that's unrestricted. Rich people know that it's about having options. That might be the option to set up a foundation and do a lot of charitable giving. Philanthropy. A lot of charities couldn't even survive at all if it weren't for the existence of wealthy benefactors. When the middle class vilifies and demonizes the wealthy, a lot of times it's out of resentment and jealousy. It's really their problem. There are just a few wealthy people that pose with Ferraris and Maybachs that makes criticism a convenient thing to do, but most wealthy have a kind and giving heart, and that's exactly why they have a lot of friends and were able to build a large network to help leverage each other in the first place. The wealthy pay the taxes and they create the jobs. This is why money is a tool of empowerment more often than it is a tool of evil. So money is a force for good, and if you don't think that it is, then this is a limiting belief. Having more money just reveals who you really are. If I gave a middle-class cheater $5 million, they're still going to be a cheater after they get that $5 million. So money doesn't change people. Money reveals people. It makes you more of what you already are. And with $5 million added to your net worth, if you cheat on your taxes and you take unethical shortcuts in business, you're just going to do the same thing on a bigger scale if you add money into that equation. On the flip side, if you're a giver, an infusion of $5 million to you and your family is just going to make you more of a giver. What money does is that it liberates your true self. In fact, the middle class works for money doing things that they don't even like to do, and therefore they aren't even being themselves at all, and they tolerate it and they stick with it for years or even decades. And if you change companies or you switch jobs, that still doesn't change this stance. Most people drag themselves into a job because they need the money. Average people go to work and just hope somehow to find some thread of passion in the work that they do. But the rich, instead, they're driven to work because they feel passion for what they do. Passion, therefore, is at the center. Really, one of the first beliefs that you need to adopt is that it's completely possible to do what you love and to get rich doing it. And once you've established this, the moon and the stars are really the limit for you, or really there's no limit at all. And you've got to establish that belief. Now you're getting into the state of consciousness that you need to be in. Do what you love and the money will follow. That statement, it's something I largely believe, but you can't just snap your fingers and make it happen right away. And you'll very likely need to keep working at your day job until you figure out how to make the money follow. But nonetheless, it begins with that belief. The masses believe that it takes money, their money, in order to make money, but the rich believe in ethically using other people's money. And really, a great example of this is when a wealthy person gets an idea so grandiose, so great, but they can't finance it. And so they turn to their network to get help from others in funding, making that entire idea happen. And see, that way, their network also benefits and gets a rate of return from that greater idea. And that doesn't usually mean taking your company public and launching an IPO on the New York Stock Exchange. It might be funding a car wash or a self-storage complex with help from your friends and your network. It might be getting an 80% loan for that income property from a relationship that you have with a lender. So it takes money to make money? Well, I don't know about that statement. It does not take your money to make money, and that's what you need to know. You're listening to How Wealthy People Think here as a regular weekly episode of Get Rich Education. I'm your host, Keith Weinhold. I've got a question for you. Let's talk about two different types of dreams. Tell me which dream you think is more selfish and which dream you think is more giving. Dream number one is the dream of having enough money so that you can retire. Dream number two is having enough money to impact the entire world. I think you know that dream number two is the dream of the rich, and that's why it's selfless. It's having enough money to influence the entire world, not just your own retirement. You're equipped with everything that you need to create lasting, multi-generational wealth for yourself. You need the belief. Like I said near the beginning today, we know you've got the same amount of time as an uber wealthy person, and time is the most important resource here once you've got that belief. So design your life and live your best life. After all, why would you want to do life any other way? As you can tell, this is really more about thinking than it is about money. In the beginning today, I said that you must think differently. Just like we are what we eat, we live what we believe. For things to get better, you've got to get better, and it only takes one person to change your life. And the great news is that that person is you, because you won't get wealthy by accident. And you won't get wealthy by doing what our recurring, annoying, cheap character Scare Skip does, clipping coupons and hanging his laundry outdoors on a clothesline to save using the dryer because it costs electricity to run it. What a maddening and a limiting way to live, burning his number one resource of time when he could be directly helping himself and others and making an impact. Near the top of the show, I told you that to become wealthy, you've got to think differently, and you agreed with me at that point. And then I revealed exactly how you need to think differently, and I understand that that can rub you the wrong way if you haven't had much exposure to these types of ideas. Not everyone is ready to hear this. And hey, there was a time in my life where I had a hard time hearing this. I used to think a lot of the same limiting beliefs that middle-class people do. The first time I read in a Robert Kiyosaki Rich Dad book that being wealthy is a choice, that's something I just didn't believe. Well, fortunately, I stayed malleable enough to believe it and learn from it, and then most importantly, apply it. In fact, I used to think to myself, now, why does someone like Robert Kiyosaki even go to work? He sure doesn't have to. And he's been an influencer to me, kind of in a grandfatherly or fatherly way. Now, I understand. Now I get it. He doesn't need the money, but he wants to make an impact in the world. He craves that significance, much like I do now. It was Mark Twain that said, "It ain't what you don't know that gets you into trouble. It's what you think you know for sure that just ain't so." That's Mark Twain. Well, if you like wealth mindset episodes like this, we've got a lot of them here. Most of these were in the first 100 or so Get Rich Education episodes, although there's certainly been some of them since. One favorite episode that people still point to is episode 66. It's called Wire Your Mind for Wealth. That's a monologue episode that I did, number 66. Also, what you can do is go to getricheducation.com, and in the upper right, hit the magnifying glass. That's for the search bar. And you can type in the name of your favorite mindset motivator, because they were probably here on the show with me, whether that's T. Harv Eker or Robert Kiyosaki or Garrett Gunderson. Some other books and people that you might find influential are How Rich People Think by Steve Seibold, or the book that I published called 7 Money Myths That Are Killing Your Wealth Potential. In fact, you can get my ebook of that title for free right now at getricheducation.com/book. I really appreciate your feedback over the years on the show here, and oftentimes it's these mindset episodes that seem to resonate the most with you and just everyday people that aren't Get Rich Education listeners yet. I've had a couple people tell me recently that they use certain episodes of this show as homeschooling for their children, which I absolutely love hearing that. It's about making that impact again that gives me such a great feeling. Ultimately, what it comes down to in this one life that you've been given is that either you can be a conformer or you can build wealth. Which one are you going to choose? If you got value from today's show, it would mean the world to me if you took a screenshot of this episode or grabbed the listening link and shared it through your social media or in an email. This is probably the most important episode I've done in a while, where it's worth sharing with your friend or your coworker or maybe even your family member. And rather than telling them, hey, you need to listen to this episode because this is how you should think, well, people don't like being told what to do. So if you're kind enough to share the episode for me, maybe frame it in a way saying, this is why I think how I do, and this has helped other people that I know, and this is something that's really helped me. It's been How Wealthy People Think today on Get Rich Education. I'm your host, Keith Weinhold. I'll be back with you next week. Don't quit your daydream.
Nothing on this show should be considered specific, personal, or professional advice. Please consult an appropriate tax, legal, real estate, financial, or business professional for individualized advice. Opinions of guests are their own. Information is not guaranteed. All investment strategies have the potential for profit or loss. The host is operating on behalf of Get Rich Education, LLC exclusively.
The preceding program was brought to you by your home for wealth building, getricheducation.com.